might be one of the most massive weeks in the stock market we're going to see for quite a while. And we have consumer sentiment data, we have CPI data, we have the inflation rate is talking about it being at 8.1%, but if it's above that, then the market's going to absolutely crumble because the Federal Reserve is probably going to raise rates even more aggressively to counteract inflation, and we get Fed minutes this week. We also have PPI data coming out. So there's so much to pay attention to. Federal Reserve speakers are crazy. And another thing to pay attention to is this, the TNX right here. If it breaks this 3.92 right here, then we could crack that 4% on the Treasury yields. So the 10-year Treasury index right here is forming like this little bull flag. We could retest that high. And if we break above that, that's inverse to the market. So I'm looking at this low of 357.04 right here. I think that we're probably going to test that. So on the weekly chart, it looked like early last week we were going to bounce for a little bit further, but we got absolutely rejected from that 380 mark all the way back down. And it looks like we might hit this low at 357 here. If you can see, I started to draw some of these circles where we got rejected on the weekly, and the very next week we gapped down quite a bit. So the data this week is going to be pretty crazy to pay attention to, so the volatility is going to be nuts, but we are below this 200 EMA. The Bollinger Bands are expanding, and that 357 on the weekly chart looks really weak. And on top of that, the daily chart looks really weak too. As you can see, quite a few of these little completely big reversals and then just a complete sell-off, and then we break down below it a couple days later. So I'm looking for this 357 test, if not the complete breakdown to that 350 level on the daily chart. Same thing with the QQQQ. We have that 267 low. There's a lot of lines over here. Ignore those. I'll actually clear the drawing set for you so it looks a little bit cleaner. But look for this 267 test on the downside. Technology is obviously going to take a bigger hit than the indexes will, but it looks like that 267.10 is a nice low to break below. It looks like it tapped it a little bit last week, but same thing on the weekly chart, got completely rejected, and looks like that Bollinger Band is expanding to the downside a little bit more, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this 260 level all the way dating back from the little bounce that we had on at 9/21 of 2021. So it's been over a year since we've seen these levels. It's pretty crazy how much things are happening, and I'm really looking for this pre-pandemic, before the big launch down from COVID. It looks like that 240-ish level could be a potential opportunity to start adding some for the long term, but we might see that level in the long term. But for now, look for that 266 breakdown to that 260. So SPY and QQQ look pretty bad. We have JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and all the banks reporting earnings this week starting on Friday. So they also got rejected. So they're following the market pretty nicely here. Even with interest rates rising that much, demand is slowing, so people aren't borrowing money because it's nearly impossible to borrow money. So banks are not making a good amount off of that market condition, and on top of that, the investment banks are not doing so hot. They're laying off a bunch of people. Banks are cutting a bunch of people because no one's going public, no one's making money, and the economy is just basically in a big shithole right now. So pay attention quickly. The opportunity, the upside, is probably coming up here pretty soon, but with all this inflation data and everything we have coming out, we still have some downside in my opinion. I think we could see these pre-pandemic levels, but pay attention to that 357 low in the S&P 500. To the put side could be huge this week. And as always, be super careful with the volatility and all the news events, because this is going to be one insane week. It's a day trader's dream, day trader's paradise. So I'm pumped for this week, but pay attention to that 357 level on the S&P 500 and on the QQQ. Obviously, look for the 267, I believe. Let's just confirm real quick. 267.10 for that breakdown. So we could potentially see 260 on the Qs and the SPY well below 357 of that 350 range, unless there is positive data coming out, which I can't imagine that happens. So hopefully these levels help you out, but it looks like we might be going a little bit lower for the month of October.